What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the video. Valley Behavior Consultation Services, Tyler Prue. I'm going to talk with you just for a few minutes about some important things you can do for your family members with autism during this holiday season. Now, keep in mind, I don't know your family or your specific situation, so these are just some general principles. Number one, and something I feel like can't go wrong, and that is plan ahead. Plan ahead this holiday season. More specifically, though, keeping in mind during your planning process, you want to know and have identified the expectations that your family member on the spectrum has during this holiday season. Everybody has those expectations. So you should know what are those expectations that they have. And honestly, not just you wanting to know their expectations. If you have other family members, you're going to want to know their expectations as well and identify even your own. And have that conversation with your family member with autism, if it's appropriate, and if they can communicate these things. Ask some questions such as, what are you looking forward to this holiday season? Or what are some things that you're not particularly looking forward to? Or some things that you haven't enjoyed in the past during the holiday season? If you don't feel like it's appropriate, or you feel like you're going to get good information asking those questions, then simply just think back in previous holidays. What went well and what did not go so well? And kind of think through those things. Or what were some things where it appeared in these situations they didn't really seem to enjoy? You're going to want to identify those things when it comes to the planning process. So keep that in mind, but also a second thing you are definitely going to want to do is identify potentially difficult situations during the holidays. Identify these things ahead of time. You know your family member's history. You've seen some of the things maybe even throughout the year where your family members struggled. And so you're going to want to not only identify what potentially those situations are going to be, but also what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to require that they still go through that situation, or are you going to allow them to avoid that situation? And again, if you can have a conversation with them about these things, that's great. Because they might come out and tell you and be like, you know what, when it comes to opening the presents, that's really challenging for me. And seeing other people open presents with things that I actually like, that's a struggle. If they're able to communicate that with you and they know they can communicate that and tell you that that's going to be a struggle, well then you know and you can plan accordingly. And maybe there's some alternative activity that you can do at that time. Also, think through, maybe there's going to be some situations that are going to be challenging and have historically been challenging, but we know that, and we know that we're just going to provide some extra support to them during that time. And think through what kind of support is going to be needed. What should that look like? And so when it comes to the planning process, identify not only expectations for the holiday season, but identify some of those potentially challenging situations that they might encounter. Now, here is a third thing, which is very big, okay? And this is very relevant if you're traveling this holiday season, or if you're having guests during this holiday season into your own home. You are going to want to have a planning meeting with them. That could be just a simple phone call. It doesn't have to be anything formal. It could simply be, especially for family members that don't know you and your family all that well because they might live across the country, but it might be very beneficial to have this meeting, have this conversation with them, and just identify and telling them, look, I realize that we're going to be doing these activities this holiday season. And here are, out of these activities, some of these things are going to be challenging for my family member on the spectrum. And here is what I would like to do about that. Here are some of the things that we're going to completely avoid. And then here are some of the situations that we are going to provide some support, and we're going to work through them. And then if you have in mind already an intervention that you want to use during that time, especially if you are in somebody else's home as a guest, you really should get permission from them and out of respect and being able to implement that strategy. And again, depending on what it is, but that's just that's just showing respect to them and their home and the rules that they have in their household. And because you don't want to be disruptive also, to them and to their family. And so, show grace during the holiday season, especially, and especially to those that you all, family members and friends, you all don't come in contact all that often during the year. Another thing, to keep in mind, and I think this is going to go a long way in some situations, and that is, don't underestimate rapport building. If you're traveling and you know that that's a struggle for your family member on the spectrum, it's a struggle to go into new social environments and situations and interacting with people, and you're planning on staying, especially a long period of time, and your family member is not typically used to that, you building rapport can go a long way. And what do I mean by that? In that timing is everything. Provide an activity, make things as enjoyable as possible when you first arrive at that person's house. Maybe there's some highly preferred activities that happen when you first arrive. Maybe there's some highly preferred interactions socially that happen during that time. That can really go a long way in easing that family member into that novel environment or into that environment that they're not usually accustomed to. So keep some of those things in mind as well. Lastly, I want to talk about some potential strategies that you could use. We already kind of talked about, this is all encompassing with this planning process, where you're going to want to think through expectations like we talked about. You're going to want to identify some of those potential challenging situations that they might encounter. You're going to want to have a planning meeting with your family, or maybe even potentially even with some of your guests during the holiday ahead of time. You're going to want to do some rapport building, and you're also going to want to identify some potential strategies that can be used during the holiday season, where maybe some alternative activities that can be done during more challenging time periods. Or if it's going to be a long day, maybe there can be some breaks, and there can be, opportunities for your family member on the spectrum, if they enjoy going for walks, doing that, or spending some time outside. Or it might be that there is a space designated for them in this person's home where they can go and they can have a quiet space and just relax for a few minutes. And then when they're ready, they can come back and join everybody else. Kind of think through some of these things. Another big one that can be helpful is a written or a visual schedule. That's something that you can manipulate. So if you have especially very stringent or rigid traditions, or maybe even have traditions that are not very rigid, you can manipulate that schedule, and you can show that family member on the spectrum, okay, here's what we're going to be doing next after this activity. Now, I will say this, that can go the other way. That could actually cause and produce a tremendous amount of anxiety for that individual. And if that's the case, then absolutely do not use that during the holiday season. So again, your family member on the spectrum. I don't know them. And so these are just some general thoughts and principles and some things to consider during this holiday season. I hope it was helpful. Okay, if you have specific questions that you want to ask me, feel free to directly reach out to me, and we can talk privately about your specific situation. If you have simple comments, you want me to cover some different topics, please leave that in the comments below. If this was helpful, leave it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, check out my website. You see my services that I have to offer there. Anyway, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Keep an eye out for some more videos related to this topic that will be coming out. All right, catch you on the next one. Take care.